The Echo of Justice, Part 1. The Gavel Falls. In the towering halls of the Capitol Courthouse in Nova State, USA, the air always felt a little too still, like it had been conditioned to silence voices that didn't belong. Inside Courtroom 17B, that silence was a living thing, pulsing between the cold marble pillars and the stained oak benches. Zara Langston had stood in those halls 100 times before. At 37, she was already one of the most formidable civil rights attorneys in the state. Her confidence was a quiet storm, controlled, powerful, and always looming. But today, the air was heavier. Judge Raymond Keller sat high on the bench like a king in a poisoned castle. White-haired, sharp-tongued, and known for his thinly veiled contempt for people like Zara, he'd managed to stay untouched for decades. Rumors of his bias had long swirled. He'd interrupted minority lawyers more, dismissed black defendants faster, and handed harsher sentences to people of color. But proving it? That was another story. Zara's client today was Jordan Reese, a 19-year-old black honor student charged with assaulting a police officer during a traffic stop, a stop that body cam footage revealed had escalated because the officer, agitated and power-hungry, had mistaken Jordan's panic for aggression. The footage had conveniently disappeared for weeks. When it finally surfaced through a leak, it showed something damning. Jordan had been assaulted, not the other way around. Yet Judge Keller refused to admit the video. Procedural mishandling, he ruled, ignoring precedent. Zara's jaw tightened, but she stayed composed. But the gallery gasped. Murmurs spread like sparks on dry grass. That night, the footage hit social media. It exploded. #JusticeForJordan trended. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse by morning. Part 2. The Fire Within. Zara had faced racism before, in law school, in firms, on the streets, but this was something darker. Keller wasn't just denying a fair trial, he was defending a system designed to crush truth when it came from black mouths. Zara filed an emergency motion to recuse Keller, unheard of. Career suicide, some whispered. But she had evidence now, statistics of his sentencing records, sworn testimonies from other attorneys, and the video itself. She stood before the appeals board 2 weeks later, delivering a blistering argument about integrity, bias, and the soul of justice. "You cannot have justice," she said, voice steady but full of fire, "if it only speaks the language of privilege. If the bench becomes a shield for prejudice, then the gavel is nothing more than a weapon." The media was there, so were hundreds of protesters. The city held its breath. Keller was removed. The new judge, an Afro-Latina woman named Marisol Vega, allowed the video into evidence. The case crumbled in days. Jordan was freed. Part 3. The People Rise. But Zara didn't stop there. She filed a civil rights lawsuit against the police department. She launched an initiative to track and publish judicial bias data across the state. She testified before Congress. Her face was on the cover of Time. Kids dressed like her for Halloween, blazers, curly hair, glasses, and that look of fearless calm. Judge Keller? He retired in disgrace. His rulings were reviewed, and a few overturned. His name faded into footnotes. On the courthouse steps after Jordan's exoneration, Zara emerged to the roar of a crowd, black, white, young, old, all chanting her name. She didn't smile at first. She stood in silence, letting the sound wash over her like absolution. Then she raised her hand and said, "This is not my victory. This is our voice, and from now on, it will not be silenced." Epilogue. A year later, the Langston Reform Act was passed, creating independent oversight for judicial bias and mandating cultural competency training for judges and attorneys. Law schools began teaching about the case. Statues were built, not of judges, but of lawyers like Zara. Because sometimes justice doesn't echo from the bench, it rises from the people who refuse to be silenced. Would you like this adapted into a screenplay, novel, or series concept?